We're live. It's True Faith presents The Charlotte Show. Just in case you tuned in last week, and why wouldn't you have tuned in last week? We called it The Charlotte Robson Show. We're trying on lots of different things at the moment. I have renamed it because I felt like that was a bit too much. That was a little bit like LinkedIn-y for me. So we are now True Faith presents The Charlotte Show. Still me, don't worry. But a little bit more fun, I think.
Do you think it's like a sub brand? The pressure's off you, so you're not like, you know.
So I'm joined today by Adam Widrington.
Hi everyone.
There he is. Adam is one of our True Faith regulars, and he's kindly joined me today. Today we're going to talk. We haven't solicited questions, but if you are watching live, please do whack your questions and comments in the comments. And to our patrons who will be listening to this audio after the fact, hello, thanks for listening. Thank you for bearing with me because I forgot to put the audio up last week, and then there was quite a lot of chat, pre-Man U chat, and by the time I realised we had comfortably lost to Man U, so it didn't really feel appropriate anymore. But I will never forget to do it again. That's my promise to you. Adam, what you
heard it here first. Today I am drinking some Marks and Spencer's brand cider, Dabinet. But the most important detail on this bottle is the 7.2% in the corner there. So watch out.
It's a bougie high alcohol cider. Lovely. I've got a tea because tonight for me is all about sleep, and I want to be getting the best and the most of it. But before I do that, I thought that you and I, Adam, tonight could talk a little bit. It's actually a bit of a Brucey special.
Oh yes, I came to the right place. If you could possibly not fall asleep until the end of the show, that would probably be.
Well, I don't know how you can. I don't know how you could fall asleep with the treats we've got in store. We're going to talk through his little press conference today, including some embargoed but now not embargoed comments, which I don't really understand why they were ever embargoed in the first place.
I think we could go very, very far if we just embargoed everything he said. I think there'd be a lot more harmonious connection between fans and manager.
Yes, but the embargo suggests that eventually we'll find it out. And is it better to get drip-fed Bruce nonsense, or like a massive wedding cake of it at the end of the month? That's just the biggest thing I could think of, a wedding cake, right?
There is a lot of stomach there, isn't there? Probably on one go, so you just get angry once as opposed to 15 times.
I think it's better to be drip-fed Brucey nonsense. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about it. There was, so I'm just navigating away. So if my eyes are wildly oscillating around the screen, that is why. He talked about Miggy. So that's been a question on everyone's lips lately. He said that Almiron was, in fact, too fresh off the plane to play last weekend. But he was on the bench, and he did come on for all of about 90 seconds towards the end of the game. Such impact that it was. But he says he should be fit for Wolves, and he's in the plan. Adam, you said that he said he was in the plan.
Steve Bruce said Miggy is featuring in his plans for the Wolves game. However, what we've come to know of Steve Bruce and his lack of
plan.
Trust, well, yes, lack of plan. There's lack of trust in the player, in Miggy Almiron. That being a part of his plans might again mean coming on in the 87th minute for a token appearance, like at the end. Steve Bruce says that he didn't start the last game because he was fresh off the plane from internationals. What's his excuse for the rest of the fixtures this season?
Yeah, I agree. We've sort of, touched on it in some of the podcasts post games this season, he just hasn't really. I don't think he knows what to do with him, and that's the only conclusion I can draw from it. Even though that baffles me, because what to do with him would surely be to play him sort of widen up front.
So there's reports today that says Miggy's frustrated. Of course he has. He's probably been frustrated the whole time. But you can sense that frustration. You can understand it when there are people playing completely out of position instead of him. And the funny thing is, with Almiron, he's not like Saint-Maximin in that he's a luxury player. And we've seen that people have targeted Saint-Maximin and Lewis on that flank simply because Saint-Maximin doesn't do as much defensive work, and that's fine because he brings something else. But with Miggy Almiron, what you do get, as much as the creativity, which we're crying out for, by the way, as much as the fact that he scores, he assists, you get the work ethic, you get the defensive, tactical intelligence. He knows that he has to chase back. He knows that he has to double up on good wingers. He knows that, and he does that, and he is energetic, and he will run himself into the ground for 90 minutes, every single fixture he plays. Now, for me, his attitude's there, the talent is there. He brings something that we are absolutely crying out for, which is creativity. And yet, he still can't buy a start. He still can't buy a start. You've got Jeff Hendrick as a centre midfielder potentially taking a position off him. You've got Joe Linton playing on completely out of position on the right wing, taking a position away from him. Of course he's frustrated. I'm sure half the fan base are. I'm sure there's some people who think, we've got a good balance now, or some people in the fan base that maybe just don't rate him. I think he's great. I think he should be a linchpin, an orchestrator for our team to set the tempo, to drive, and to forward passes, progressive passes into the box.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
You sort of very hinted at my key point for Almiron there, which is the attitude and the enthusiasm and the actual sort of joy that he brings onto the pitch a little bit. You get it from ASM. You get that kind of fun. He loves to nutmeg the opposition. He's he's having a good time. But you can see how frustrated he gets with his teammates, and obviously now our opposition, whoever would play, has worked out that as soon as ASM gets the ball, 2 or 3 men on him straight away, that's the hold up our play. But Almiron, even when that stuff happens, I think he just still is having a great time. That boy just has this crazy big grin on his face.
He does, but he loves playing for us as well. He's really excited to be here, and he does. When something goes wrong on the pitch, he gets fouled, and he doesn't get it. He does that really passive aggressive smile, doesn't he? That this kind of disbelief. I'm trying to do it here. I'm not doing him justice, but you've got that. But I imagine that his face is like that every time he sees the team sheet before a fixture and he hasn't been picked again, and he'll just be there like he does to the referees, just kind of going,
yeah, what's going on here?
Just having to laugh, because otherwise he'll cry that he hasn't been picked again.
Speaking of crying, I'm going to tell you, we're going to talk now about Carl Darlow, who, so Brucey said today that he's not got a tear, but he's really bruised, and he's a maybe for Wolves, but that Gillespie's fine. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Gillespie, who we got on a free from Motherwell, is not fine against a team like Wolves.
I mean, we've seen him play. We've seen him play, haven't we? And he dropped a plotter in the cup when we went behind.
A horrible sentence.
Yeah. The thing is, he described in today's press conference, he described Darlow's injury. It was an awful, awful injury. He definitely contributed to that being 2 awfuls rather than just the singular.
Right.
Keep him on the pitch for the entire game that we got smashed in anyway.
It is astonishing.
I've never seen anything. I've never seen anything like it. And as much as I've been advocating for Miggy to get on the pitch, he decided to put Miggy on the pitch for the last few minutes rather than replace the very injured second choice goalkeeper that we will definitely need for the next game. If he does, like, just bring him off. Like, you're down to your second choice goalkeeper. Yes, he thinks he's going to scrape a draw against Manchester United. But you've got to, as a manager, you have to be cleverer than that. You can't just live in the moment.
You have to protect your players. And, you know, it got to the point, and I've written a special for this weekend, and I've said it in that, and I think Alex said it in the podcast as well after Man U. Got to the point where Karl Darlow couldn't kick a long ball at the pitch. He had to do short balls from goal because he was in so much pain. He was limping. I've caught bits of it, but I was mostly following Chris Woff, because Chris Woff, who goes for the Athletic, obviously goes to the games, and he writes a really good live tweet of it. Like, you can get a good feel of what's going on if you're, just watching Twitter. And it was like, Darlow's pretty injured, 79 minutes, Darlow limping, like 81 minutes, Darlow clearly in pain. And I was just like, what the hell? And like, during that, Gillespie was warming up and then sat back down, and then was warming up and then sat back down. So he clearly could see it, thought, I'm going to come on here. And Steve Bruce was like, no, it's all right, actually. We've got this. And you're absolutely right. He's exacerbated the injury. He should have come off and he should have got treatment straight away. What's
really, really funny is that how have you described, the slow worsening of that injury is like a reverse of the evolution of man, Charles, where there's a guy stand up straight and then it just like hunched over, and then he's just lying on the floor with like hanging off in the end.
And it's no surprise. I mean, it was no surprise anyway if Karl Darlow had been in absolute full fitness. Maybe it wouldn't have been 3 more goals, maybe it would have been 2. But it was no surprise that the eventual scoreline was 4-1 when our goalkeeper was like in physical turmoil, like on the pitch. That's just mental to me that he kept him on.
Do you think, just to play devil's advocate for a minute,
go for it?
Do we think that Karl Darlow? What did he think? What do we think he was thinking? Because if you're a goalkeeper or any player and you sit down on the floor, put your hand up, you know you're coming off. However, do you think he wanted to stay on because he was having a good game? He saved a penalty. He wanted to see it out. Do you think it was more of a case of he cares about this chance that he's got now that Dubravka's injured, or do you think there was some kind of pressure placed on him? Does they say like, stay on if you can, and it's just like, well, I sort of can, but I can't. Like, what do you think? Because
I think he was thinking none of the above. He was thinking, I can't come off because the alternative's terrible. And I'll probably be okay. But also I think he was thinking, well, we're coming up on 80 minutes. I can get through 10 more minutes, not expecting 5 minutes of stoppage time, So, which just compounded the situation.
It's difficult. And hasn't Dubravka's injury recently been exacerbated as well? Like, hasn't that was close to return, and now he's out for longer. Again, this is no surprise under a Bruce coaching regime, is it? We are used to people just dropping like flies. Like,
there is something going on or not going on in the sort of conditioning side. But it just worries me, because obviously people who have listened to True Face for a while will know that I'm a huge Dubravka fan. I was really warming to Karl Darlow. I think
you've never mentioned your affinity for Martin Dubravka ever any platform.
Very quiet about it. I won't chain the computer to the mural I have on my
wisp of his hair at the
what? No. Anyway, so yes.
Do you sleep in goalkeeping gloves?
I sleep in
too
one.
Personal, isn't it, really? It's too personal.
Like, I've had one made and I just get in. It's really cozy. yeah, anyway, I was skeptical about Cardona, but he's done well, and I'm really worried about him. And hopefully, if he is out, it's just Wolves, but hopefully he's not out at all, because we really need him for Wolves. I did see that Santo said today that he thinks Newcastle are a similar sort of team to Wolves, or similar level to Wolves, which I thought was very sweet of him to say.
Very, very flattering, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I know we've been in the league for a couple of extra years, but come on, Nuno, you've got it going on there. We're in display.
I'd like it if he was just like, no, that's shit.
Yeah, you're nothing like this.
So let's talk. We'll move away from the Manchester game shortly, but so the press conference today, which I wanted to talk about, focused a little bit on it, and then obviously on the Wolves fixture, and then we'll play our game. But I wanted to say this embargoed Steve Bruce comments, which are now not embargoed. I'm dealing with the Chronicle website, so it'll take me several years.
You have to click all the pop-up ads off.
I know.
There'll be about 15 to get through.
There's a heck of a lot more than
it's
that.
Some sort of digital machete to get through them.
Yeah, you do. That's a good
content.
So in this embargoed section of the press conference, which is now not embargoed, I don't really understand why it was in the first place, but okay.
Creates demand, doesn't it? We're talking about it.
Yeah, but I would be talking about it even if it hadn't been, because I was always going to talk about the press conference today. He said, Manu, I understand the criticism, and actually said that his side, Newcastle, were too easy to play against, and that Cardona had to make, quote, too many saves. And he very rarely he was making comments like that. He sort of walked it back a little bit about how he gets a harsh time on social media. And I do think he needs to step back from looking at Twitter, because it's not, there is a good percentage of the fan base on there, but it's a particularly vocal percentage. And I don't think it is altogether represented. Like, he specifically mentioned social media. It's like, well, in the grand scheme of things, not everybody's on social media and slagging them off on there. We're slagging them off in the pub as well. But
on YouTube.
Yeah, on YouTube. I'm not trying to slag him off. I'm just trying to dissect his comments.
I am.
What do you make of his comments then, Adam, about sort of that admission? I think it felt bigger to me than what he normally does, which is go on the defensive.
The thing is with Steve, we know that, part and parcel of the modern game and being a modern manager or head coach or whatever you are, it matters what you say in press conferences. It matters what you say because fans will read it, journalists will create stories out of it. What you say determines a lot of the narrative. If you're clever and smart, some of the more shrewder managers, I'd say, in the European elite will deflect. They'll be clever. They'll think about what they're saying. They'll change the narrative. They'll maybe deflect. They'll protect their players. They'll maybe criticize something else, the referee or whatever. And you might not agree with it or not. But what Bruce has never been very good at is handling media. I don't think he prepares. I think everything just flies out of his mouth, and then there's the fallout afterwards. He realizes that he's contradicted himself and he said something that he really didn't mean to say. And I think that's a real problem, and it has been from the start. So I think he contributes to it a lot.
I think there's an element of the deflection in some European elite managers, but there's also, and I think Chris Woff came on one of our patron show, I think it was a patron show, and talked to us about press conferences and stuff. And it was really interesting to get his sort of insider insight. And he sort of, not to get bogged down in our old manager, but he said, and I think this is probably true of a lot of the European elite managers, it's not about deflecting. It was my interpretation of what Chris was saying. He had a message and he wouldn't go off message. So it didn't matter what you asked him, basically. It would come back to the message that he wanted to get across, and he'd get that across and he'd leave. So in a way,
it's like spoken like a true politician. It doesn't matter what you ask them, they're just going to repeat the same thing, the same thing, the same thing, the same thing. So the only quote is something safe that's been rehearsed and practiced over and over and over again. Because when things are written up, nobody writes about what question was asked. They'll only write about the quote. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Rafa Benitez, and we are allowed to talk about him because he was class. Rafa Benitez was shrewd like that. And sometimes I think the press maybe didn't like some of his answers because they didn't answer his question, but he was a lot more guarded. He was a lot shrewder. He was a lot cleverer with how he dealt with the press and media. And yeah, it didn't always, he wasn't perfect. He's a human, he's flawed, but he was a lot better with dealing with that. Whereas Bruce basically talks himself into these situations where he can't back up what he said. He talked before the Man U game. He talked about, we're gonna be attacking. I'd like to see what we can do in the front. And the delusional thing is, for some reason, he thinks we did okay in the final third. Which keeps talking about that Callum Wilson chance.
Well,
which, it was one chance, but you maybe take the Callum Wilson chance, swap it with a very fortunate own goal that absolutely didn't mean to go in. If you swap those around, then we've had a chance or two. Versus we didn't show anything. We weren't potent at all in that final third. Yeah.
No, but that's sort of what I'm.
It's delusional because is he watching a different game to us, or is he just really, really trying to bullshit his way out of it?
Well, that is what I'm saying about these comments, though. That he's come out and said, actually, we were too easy to play against. Actually, this, and yeah, okay. If he hadn't said it in the first place, he wouldn't have to sort of walk back on it. But I think it's reasonably significant that he even addressed it. But we've had a comment from King Cooper, the King. Any thoughts on Jamie Rubin quitting QPR? All right. So every playing on Twitter, UFC Twitter this evening is looking for Saudi planes in the sky above Newcastle, the wider region. Jamie Rubin has been delisted as a director of QPR, which everyone who loves the conspiracy is like, oh, he's teeing it up. He's teeing it up. Hashtag from King Cooper. Oh, God, not again.
In fairness, it's a lot more significant than a sports lawyer baking bread and people
relying on Messi
about which Newcastle brown ale in the back, Guinness, good things come to the come on. Oh, there's a couple of slices. That's an 80%.
That was incredible.
Come on.
People must have had real bad muscle strain from reaching so far. It was so good. But this is an actual thing that's happened. I mean, look, I'm not gonna get my cans out yet. Ooh,
well, I hope this was a family show.
I have never. Right, I just want to be clear that I've never advertised this as a family show. But I didn't want to say that. I'm embarrassed. I'm not going to do that or drink in celebration quite yet.
I think that's sensible, Charlotte.
Look, it's exciting to be excited, but I think we're still a ways off anything actual happening.
So a little insight into the True Faith WhatsApp group. The one person that I always look forward to their reaction when things like this happen about Takeover is Mickey Carling, and his reaction when this got posted in the group earlier was he's just going, "Oh no, I can't do this again." I'm just like, I really want to just poke the bear and just go, Mickey, cans, it's happening. I think you'll get progressively more excited as the night goes on.
Oh yeah. And
I love when Mickey's in like full cans mode. He's so
really
Labrador. He's so happy. I love it.
Like a snowball. Like it's just it won't be. No, maybe. Maybe it will be. Oh no, it is. I think it is.
So this is significant because by all accounts, he was really excited to be QPR director. Like he enjoyed it there. So for him to quit feels like It does feel significant. However, until we hear anything else, there's not much you can do with that information. It's all speculation. It's all conjecture. But if it is a part of a greater thing that we all hope will happen, then it could be significant. But there's just not enough information to even speculate about at the minute.
Yeah, but it could be something to do with like not even that. Like nothing to do with Newcastle United. I don't know. Anyway, we've got another question in, and then we're going to play our game. If Steve Bruce, oh God, we'll get this question. I don't know, because the key word here, so the question is, if Steve Bruce gets sacked by Mike Ashley, who do you realistically think will be the next NUFC manager? This question is always like, ooh, and then you see the word realistically, and you start to roll back your expectations somewhat. Christ, I don't know.
I think, a lot of people are a bit mixed on him, but I would take Eddie Howe. And
well, that's what I was going to say. Is he available?
The very fact that we wouldn't have to pay for him would appeal to Mike Ashley. The very fact that he just gone through relegation and he has a reputation to build means that his demands maybe can't be as high as they would have been a couple of seasons ago. So I think he would be a good fit. He's progressive, and forget the relegation season, because I think relegation, because of a lot of different factors. What he's shown at Bournemouth, building that team, creating exciting football. A couple of seasons ago, they were flying with Fraser, Wilson. There you go. There's another connection which would work instantly. And they had David Brooks, and they were a really exciting side, a great side to watch. Josh King's another one. Mm-hmm. So we know that he can build something. We know that he at least has an idea and a vision of what his football looks like. So, you could scoff at Eddie Howe, but actually I think he would be a marked improvement on what we have. And I think it would be the perfect level for him to reestablish his status in the game.
Well, Toonami TV says they would give Sean Dyche a chance with money. He's worked wonders at Burnley. That's true. He's done a good job at Burnley. He continues to do a good job at Burnley. Burnley, the worst place ever. And
I mean, they're solid. They're not so far this season. I think they've conceded about 8 goals or something already this season.
Compared to what we've got.
Sorry. Again, compared to what we got, but would people just not get really frustrated at the agricultural style that he would bring to the side? Is that worse than no plan?
It feels like it would definitely be a step sideways, not even a little step forward. Whereas Eddie Howe does feel like it would be a bit of a step forward, even just a little one.
I think so. I think there's something to grow there, because I think he's a talent, and a lot more to come from him. I would take Howe, but I think Dyche is a decent shout. He is.
Dyche is decent.
Dyche is decent, and who doesn't want to hear that sort of that gravelly tone of voice after every? That's going to make press conferences instantly more likable. Do you mean instantly more roughness?
You mean instantly more sexy, don't you?
I do, yeah. Don't tell anyone, though. Good job this broadcast.
Someone's got a Dyche mural on their window. Stained glass window. Quick one from JDHFM. Thoughts on how you save Joe Linton's situation, or do we give up? I don't think we give up, but we don't play him on the right.
Yeah, to save the situation, I just think you need to you basically don't throw him to the wolves. No pun intended. Last season he played him in a position pretty much all season that wasn't his natural position, up front number 9. He's played him on the right wing last game. Why don't you? I don't think he plays well enough to deserve a start. So the way you save him is that you make him an impact sub that can come on the left hand side, and maybe if there's 2 up top, if we're throwing bodies forward, he can come on and do that. He needs to not start games, because I don't think he deserves a start ahead of Almiron or Fraser. They're the 2 players that we need in the team. Joe Linton doesn't create anything. He barely scores. and he doesn't do link-up play, he doesn't win headers, he doesn't tackle. Like, I don't understand why he's in that team. So for me, the way you save him is to take him out, make sure that we're not relying on him, so that when he does come on for maybe, give him 10, 15 minutes, or, maybe he's only getting 4 minutes a game. Do you know what I mean? If you do that, it relieves the pressure off him, the team plays without him, and he can I think he'll settle in a lot more without that pressure.
Mm-hmm.
I think he can be a lot more impactful when we're not riding on him to do everything, which seems to be the case at the minute. But I think you save him by not playing him every game, and he doesn't deserve it, because that's not going to get the best out of him if he knows he gets a start regardless of how poorly he plays, and the stats back it up. And we've all seen the game as well. If you bring him on sub appearances and he impresses, yeah, maybe he's pushing for a start then. But let's not reward
mediocrity.
Yeah, exactly. With guaranteed starts, simply because you might be getting a word in the ear from upstairs to say, we've spent 40 million on him, we don't want him to depreciate anymore. But actually playing him is probably going to be worse for everybody.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't produce anything, and the more he doesn't produce anything, in a year and a half, he'll be at West Brom.
Teams aren't watching and being like, there's a player we want. Like, playing him is depreciating his value.
Yeah.
Toonami TV says that, just a comment, we're starting to run out of patience with Steve Bruce. He thinks Sean Dyche would have a better style of football with money to spend. Now, that's the important caveat there. If we had it, we did some good business this window, but a lot of it was good business. I mean, it wasn't a big spend. But he definitely would take Eddie Howe. Just to go back to Joelinton, I think he could be reasonably effective. I think you're right, he doesn't get a start. Against Burnley, he was all right. He played sort of on the left behind Callum Wilson. He seemed much more comfortable there, much more comfortable bringing the ball forward. And, I think that's where he goes. But I can't see why he would get a start over a player like Almiron, who just has so much more natural ability and so much more natural intelligence about the game. That to me, that makes no sense. Shall we play a game?
I'm a bit apprehensive, but let's.
It's a Steve Bruce game. Alex actually wrote it. So on Wednesday, we were going to do, for our patrons, a game showy one. And so Alex has written it. It's only about 5 questions. The game was going to be who said this, but I printed out this mask.
Jesus. I don't think YouTube's ready for that.
It's actually not a mask, it's just an A4 piece of paper that I'm going to hold in front of my face. But wear your mask, guys. Stop the spread.
That would be a great mask to get, wouldn't it? Just the bottom of Steve Bruce's face.
Would it be great, or would it be terrifying?
I think it would be great.
Okay, well, I'm sure you can have it made.
We'll look into that for True Faith merchandise, but it's probably not going to happen. It'll get vetoed at the first hurdle. But you heard it here first. So
the game. So it was Guess Who. Obviously, I've ruined it by printing out his face to wear on my face. But I'm just going to look at my document. So the premise is you have to guess who he was managing when he made the following comment. Right?
Okay.
So there's only like a few options because it's obviously all Steve Bruce saying it. But Toonami TV is just written, you nearly broke my TV screen with that mask. Sorry. I should have put like a trigger warning up, shouldn't I?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So, here's Brucey.
Just see him floating around.
And he says, this manager found his side winless in 5 in the championship and fans calling for his head after record spending at championship level but poor results. After a 2-0 loss for which team? He said the following when it was put to him that fans had turned against him. Unfortunately, it filters through the mad few. We are whichever team, and the expectation and belief is huge, but common sense is needed. This is my weird Steve Bruce accent because I don't know what the accent ever is. The vast
You've got to do this. You've got to do the Senti bottle, haven't you?
Senti bottle. the vast majority of supporters are right behind what we are trying to do. You can feel it in the stadium. If they wanted me out, the stadium would have erupted with it before the start. The supporters can see that we had a bloody awful performance at Sheffield. Now we're sitting in 6th. I hope it shuts a few up, but I doubt it.
What is hilariously difficult about this game is that
Could be any.
all accounts, he rinses and repeats every single thing that he says at every single club, and the same things go wrong every single time. But what you're talking about there, I believe he was Aston Villa manager at the time.
You're correct. It was Aston Villa.
Yeah.
He was sacked 3 games after that comment with just 3 wins in 11 games. So it didn't really shut anyone up.
But that's 3 wins.
Yeah. Okay, next one. As manager of who? This manager said about his side ahead of a game with Derby County. The reason we're at the top end of the league is our ability to defend and defend properly. Who do you think it was?
I can't imagine that he's ever managed a side that can defend properly. What I will say is, pretty sure he got promotion with, I'm going to say Hull City.
Yes, you're right. That was they said Huddersfield. No, it's Hull. I think you might have been talking about the Villa one. Anyway, that one was Hull City, and the game saw Derby run out 4-0. So,
ouch.
Can defend. Okay, next one. I'm so sorry about my weird Steve Bruce accent, by the way.
No, I'm loving it, and I'm sure the folks at home are really enjoying it.
Okay, manager X, this guy, was manager at where when they played Newcastle United. These were his post-game comments. I thought we were decent in the first half. Newcastle hadn't been near our goal, and yet we gave a poor goal away. After the restart, we've given another one away, and the second one was comical. And the 2 or 3 opportunities we've had, we've not taken them. That's where we are at the moment. I've given him a bit of a stutter. I didn't mean to do that. Can you guess the shots completed by his side and the shots on target they had? Do you know which side it was? And there's not that many to choose from. It could do a roulette.
Sunderland?
No, that one was back to Aston Villa, and they had 1 shot on target and conceded just the 15 shots in this 2-0 defeat. Yeah, that one.
It's broken my 100% record. That I'm not going to lie. I'm fairly devastated.
You defend and you defend well. Keith B said Wigan, not Wigan, not Wigan. Okay, question 4. There are only 5 questions, so if you hate this, it's nearly done.
That's a bit extreme. I'm sure most are really enjoying it or indifferent.
Ambivalent.
I'm really enjoying it.
Okay, well, that's the most important thing to me. Team wide lost yet another game at home, making it 10 points out of a possible 45 at home. And manager X channeled his inner Neville Chamberlain by saying, I don't even think Alex has put the answer here, so if you know the answer, that's good. We haven't won enough home games to appease our fans, but I'm more determined than ever. I do know who it is, to see it through.
I mean, he had a really bad last couple of seasons. I'm going to say Sunderland again.
Yeah, I think that one's Sunderland.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure, because then we've got the very last question. Bruce went on to say, when we went on to lose, that escalated the chaos and I was sacked. Yet we're only 11 games into the new season. I wasn't given much time, was I? Admittedly, we'd had a slow start, but weren't in serious trouble. We weren't staring at relegation. What I needed was time for new players to bed in, get used to new surroundings and new tactics. What position were Bruce's side in when he was sacked and, quote, not staring at relegation?
I'm going to guess bottom 4.
Not staring at relegation.
Definitely not, because he's looking up, presumably. Rather than
looking at the table.
you look up, you look at Europe. European.
When Bruce said he needed time, how many of his side's last 38 games had he won?
7.
8. Very close.
That's terrible. That's really bad. I'd argue, with laws of kind of probability, that one of us would probably be able to do, with a squad of players, with no plan, we could probably muster up 4 or 5 wins in a season. Do you think?
I reckon so.
Like it just feels that when it's so low, when it gets to such a low figure, that it's just kind of potluck, really.
Yeah. Well, that's a little bit how I feel about this season. There's one more question, but I do feel like this season, like the wins, a couple of them have been good. Like West Ham was good, really good, and you thought, oh, actually, he's got it right here. He's actually got it right, and then that's so negated to me by the following like shit shows that it feels like, oh, maybe that was just fluke then.
Yeah, exactly, because there's nothing to build upon, and it's just to throw the dice again. The next one, it's not. We'll take learnings from that win, the things that didn't work. We'll tweak those, and that's what previous elite managers have done. They would learn from the mistakes, and they would change accordingly based on the opposition. That's not what Bruce does, and it feels like he's not learning from mistakes. He doesn't really know what that plan is. But why can't he look at what went right against Burnley, for example?
Mm-hmm. Because stuff did go right, and he has players. He's clearly a good man manager. He has players that like him and they want to play for him, and I think that's brilliant. And I'd love that to be enough, but it just doesn't seem like it's enough. Steve B says that's the problem with Bruce. Everything is always a work in progress, but it doesn't work, and there's no progress. Last one, also on needing time. He said in that last quote, when he was sacked in December 2011, how many months had he been in the job for when he was saying that he needed time there?
Oh, 20?
41.
Get out. 41. What's that, like 3.5 years or something, is it?
About that. Not great.
Dear me.
Dear me is right. My God.
Gosh darn it.
That was the little game. We're going to do it all audio on Patreon this week. And Alex was going to intersperse the actual clips of Brucey talking there. But instead you got me doing a terrible impression of him where he was like sometimes from the Midlands and sometimes from the Netherlands.
Charlotte, in your defense, I think all of us would prefer to hear your voice than Stephen Roger Bruce's.
Is that his name?
It is, yeah, I researched it. I've got like a full dossier on him.
I went down to the Litton Phil. I've been researching him all day. There's no name project. Right. With that, I think we will wrap right on up. But this is a weekly show. Adam isn't going to be here every week, but hopefully we'll play a game for some more fun times. We welcome your comments. Love that people have got involved on the comments today. Patrons, if you're listening to this after the fact, if you want to post comments on the Patreon page or questions, we'll incorporate them into next week's show. And if you want to see Steve Bruce's floating head, this is, of course, available on YouTube as well. In the meantime, we'll be back after the Wolves game. I believe that the boys will be recording on Monday night to celebrate a tactical masterclass from Santo's side and our probable loss. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you did tune in, thank you very much for listening. If you're listening, and we'll be back next week. Take care.